Hello, friends. Thank you for joining for another All Hands on Tech developer stream. I'm your host, David Neal. Over the last couple of months, we've been streaming almost every Thursday, um, walking through building an Electron desktop application that is a teleprompter app. And I'm uh, excited today. I think what we're going to do is wrap up a few tasks and cover a few things that will kind of put us across the finish line for version 1.0 for this application. If you're joining the stream for the first time, we've been building a teleprompter application that is a kind of a transparent, translucent app that overlays the screen so that you can read a script while you're presenting or conducting an interview or recording a video, a tutorial, or some type of interaction with other folks. And just to give you an idea of what that kind of setup looks like, I've got my computer here in front of me, and I've got a camera sitting up here, and I've got a preview of everything that I'm doing on my computer in front of my camera so that I can continue to make eye contact and look at the camera. If you look at my setup, I've got my laptop here. I've got a tablet in front of my camera that's projecting a mirror of what's on my laptop. And I've got a special teleprompter screen that mirrors uh, this tablet, and it's a special type of glass that allows me to see what's on the screen, but the camera does not pick up any of that video. So if I have a script up on my computer, I can read that script as I am looking directly at the camera, which is pretty awesome. That because if you look at quality videos or interviews or training or anything that you might be developing or have seen other folks do, when you can make continuous eye contact with the camera, it makes a big difference because it looks like we're making eye contact. So this app that we've been building is an Electron application. Electron is essentially a web app built with Node.js and Chrome and packaged in a way that for someone who is using an Electron application, they would never know, or possibly not ever know that it's a web-based application. If you've used Visual Studio Code or Slack or GitHub for desktop or a number of other desktop apps, those are created with Electron and are basically web-based applications and are pretty fantastic. I use Visual Studio Code here on this stream. I've been using Visual Studio Code for years. It is my favorite editor for JavaScript and Node.js and a lot of web technologies. By the way, my name is David Neal. I go by Reverend Geek on Twitter and Instagram, social media. I have my website, reverendgeek.com. You can contact me at david@reverendgeek.com or connect with me on Twitter or LinkedIn or any number of areas. And I am a principal developer advocate for Pluralsight. And, my job is to help learning easier and more fun for developers like you, or folks who are getting into technology, or folks who've been around for a while like I have, who are trying out new technologies. if you have any questions or have any um, comments or encouragement that you want to share in this stream or to me directly, I would love to hear from you. Please post your comments on wherever you're watching this, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, and I should be able to see those comments pop up on my screen. And if you're joining for the first time, one thing you should know is that the source code for this project is available. You can download it and follow the README instructions to get it running on your system and use it for yourself. Or if you want to play with the code, dive into it, see how it works, go back and watch any of the previous streams on some of the features that we've added to it. I encourage you to, take advantage of this repository and this stream and previous streams and learn how to build a desktop app. Because even though we're building a teleprompter application that is specific to, solving this one problem, the things we've learned over the last several weeks are applicable to building any kind of desktop application. We've covered, reading and writing files, saving configuration information. We've covered dealing with displays and saving state of the application so that the next time the application runs, it is displayed in the same spot in the same dimensions as before. We've recently covered customizing the menu structure so that we can have like a file open and respond to that reading and writing files. And we've covered things like looking for keystrokes. We use the keyboard or a clicker to be able to advance the teleprompter. And today, one of the things that I want to cover today is how to package an Electron application, or, to use vocabulary in other systems, how do you compile an Electron application into an executable? There's several approaches to this, and we'll cover that in just a moment. But if you want to go and grab the source code and follow along, or if you have any issues that you run into, you can post those on here or post those as an issue in the GitHub repository. All right, I'm going to switch screens and put myself down here in the corner. Turn off the caption here. And before we get into the project, a couple of things like housekeeping things that I like to do on a periodic basis whenever I'm building stuff with Node or Electron or just JavaScript in general is to check to see if there's any updates. So I'll run npm outdated to see if there are any packages that we're using in the repository that are outdated. There's been a very, this is a minor patch. Don't have to install it, because this is something that by default, if you were to pull down this repository and install it run npm install on your machine to download the dependencies, it would go ahead and download the latest version of Electron, since it is a patch version. But just to show you how to do it, you run npm update. It's going to go and fetch those things and update the dependencies. Oh, I forgot to give you a heads up. I've been fighting with some internet connectivity issues today. For whatever reason, I've had some speed issues and connectivity. If for any reason I get disconnected, I will try to reconnect. Um, Apologies in advance if there's any issues with the quality of the video or audio that comes through. These, I'm updating this module right now, and it's taking a long time. It normally doesn't take this long to update any dependencies. So I don't know what's going on. I've tried restarting everything. Hopefully we'll make it through the stream and fine. All right, so that's updated. And to give you an idea of what this application does, I'm going to run npm start, which will launch the application. I'm going to hide this other window, and you can see this translucent window that overlays my desktop. This is where this teleprompter script would be loaded. And last week during our stream, we finished implementing the file open menu so that if we run, we can open any Markdown file and load that as our script. And as we've done in previous versions or previous streams, you can use the keyboard left and right arrows to jump ahead in the script, or if I had my clicker here, a presentation clicker can also advance and jump back in the script, because a clicker is really just a keyboard that does only a couple of commands, and that is the left and right arrow key presses. All right, so everything's still working like we expect it to, and I want to cover clear this screen, cover packaging an Electron application so that you can share it with other folks, so that you've got an executable or a packaged app that you can share with someone else so that they can use the application. And the kind of the standard for doing that in Electron is a system called Electron Packager. I'm going to bring a browser window over here. Electron Packager is on GitHub. You can also access it through the npm repository. But this essentially allows you to customize and package your Electron app with OS or operating system specific bundles, an app for Mac OS, an EXE for Windows, and also supports Linux. And the packager you can install using npm. You can also run it interactively using npx. npx is a way of using npm where you don't have to install it as a dependency. You can just run it directly. But this npx command line, the example that they've got here is you supply the source directory where your Electron application source code lives. You can give it an app name, specify the platform, whether that's Mac, which in Electron terminologies, Mac is Darwin. There's Darwin, Windows, and Linux. And architecture is like 64 or 32-bit or Intel versus ARM processors, because you've got different binaries for each one of those. For every operating system and every architecture, there's a unique Electron binary that supports that operating system and architecture. And there's lots of other flags that you can use. what I'm going to do is run npm install, and this is a developer dependency. It's not required for production, so we're going to save this to our developer dependencies. And this is Electron Packager. Might take a little bit for that to download. If you have any questions at any point along the way, or you just want to say hello, please post something in the chat so that I know that you're there. That would be awesome. So the dependency is now installed. And I'm going to open up Visual Studio Code. And you can see now in package.json, we have Electron Packager is a dependency. I'm going to create in the scripts section a script to create a package. And I'm just going to call it build. And we're running Electron Packager. The current directory is the source. And there's also, we look at I think it's called out. Let me search. Out directory. So what happens, let me just run it like it is right now. Electron Packager pointing at the root of the project. And we'll say npm run build. It's packaging the app for Darwin ARM64 because I'm running a MacBook with the M1 processor. So that's considered an ARM processor and not a Intel x86 or x64. So it created the package. If I look at the directory here, it's created a directory for the name of my app and the platform and architecture. So if I look in Visual Studio Code and open that up, I can see that there's some files and things out here. If I do open on the Mac and open that folder, what we see in the folder is the Electron teleprompter application. And I can double click on that, run it, and it pops up the application. In case you can't see that very well, I'll hide some of the other windows. And now you should be able to see like the text. And I can do Command O to open a file. And I'll open the README for and I can scroll through there and look at the README. All right, that's looking good so far. So, a couple of things about what just happened. Let me close the application. It created a folder in the root of the project. And I don't like that default behavior because I don't want, say I'm building lots of different versions of this app for different platforms. I don't want those taking up, creating new folders in the root of my project. What I'd rather have is a distribution folder where all these builds go into. And the distribution folder is not something that I want to check into my repository. It's just where I want stuff to be built, and then I can handle outside of the repository how to distribute these files. So the way to do that is I'll do Electron Packager and use the out flag and specify a folder called, a common folder that folks use in software development is dist, as in distribution, short for distribution. So this will be a folder. Let's delete this Electron teleprompter folder that it created. So now we're back to just two folders in our project, node modules and source. Make sure that's saved. And now let's run. Clear the screen and run that again. npm run build. So now if I list the directory, I see that there's a dist folder. And if I go to Visual Studio Code here and expand the dist folder, there's a Electron teleprompter folder inside. So if I change directory to dist and list that, there's one folder. There's my app, Electron teleprompter.app, and I can say open Electron teleprompter, and that'll run the application. So everything's working like it's supposed to so far. And at this point, I could take this Electron teleprompter.app and say zip it up, or put it on a flash drive, or upload it to a shared folder like Box or Dropbox or Google Drive or any number of other ones, and I could give someone else a link to download this file, and they could run it on their system. There is it's taking the Electron binary that's already been compiled and distributed via the npm repository, and it's adding the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript from the project that we've been working on, and package that in a way that it looks like a single .app file that you can give to someone else. And that may be all you need. If you're building an application that, say, you're going to give to a handful of other people that work at your same company or that are part of a developer community that you're helping with, you can just point them to a package that you've created using Electron Packager and be done with it. So by default, Electron Packager only creates a package for your system's current operating system and architecture. If we want to create packages for other operating systems, in theory, we can do that using, I believe, it's the --all command or flag. Let me just see what happens when I try to do that. It's not going to work on my system, and I'll explain in just a moment. Looks like the 32-bit version of Intel processors for Linux is no longer supported. So we'd have to be explicit in which architectures and things that we want to build for. So the all flag right now does not work. I don't think that would work for anyone. And the Windows version, I know from experience that to package a Windows version, you've got to have some support on the Mac at least to be able to update an executable so that you can change things like the name of the application and tell it what files to load up. So it's got to be able to rewrite some stuff in that binary. And to be able to do that, you've got to have a supporting system installed called Wine. Wine on, if I search building Windows apps from non-Windows platforms. If you're going to build on Linux or Mac OS, then you need to have Wine version 1.6 or later installed. I don't have that installed right now. My preference is to use a virtual machine like Parallels on the Mac or VMware, Fusion or VirtualBox. There's a number of different virtualization systems that you can choose from. I prefer to have that where I have, say, a couple of different distributions of Linux, a couple of versions of Windows, and that way I can test and make sure that these packages are working on each of those operating systems as intended. So my recommendation is build on whatever system that you have, but if you want to distribute to other operating systems and other architectures, you kind of need to be sure those access to those other operating systems and architectures to be able to create packages and installers, especially when creating installers. I don't think it would be, even though you can update an executable using Wine on Mac and Linux, I think I'd still feel a lot more comfortable about building executables and installers on a Windows machine, if that's what I needed to support. All right. Another thing about what we have so far. So when I ran this Electron Packager and it created this app, the name of the app is, all lowercase Electron-teleprompter. And if I look in here and I run this application, up here in the menu area, if you can see that, it's also Electron-teleprompter, and then about Electron-teleprompter. The name here is Electron-teleprompter. That may not be, what I would really like to have displayed. I would like to have something a little bit more friendly than that. And one of the ways you can do that, you can specify in the build as one of the parameters the name of the product to use, but you can also specify the product name in your package JSON. So I'm going to Electron teleprompter capitalized with a space instead of a dash. And this Electron Packager by default, unless otherwise specified in the command line parameters, such as it will read information about your application from your package JSON file, like the version and the name, the product name. All of these are read by Electron Packager to create the executable. You can override those things as command line parameters. So let's build this again. First of all, I'm going to back out to the dist folder, and I'm going to remove this build. I'm going to run the build again. Oh yeah, we still got the all. version. Let's take that back out. And now you'll see that in our distribution folder, we now have a folder with Electron space teleprompter, both words capitalized, and the application itself is Electron space teleprompter .app. And when we launch that application, the menu now says Electron space teleprompter. The about has the preferred name. So that's a quick and easy win. Okay, let's talk about the icon. So the icon that you're seeing here is the default Electron application icon. So what Electron Packager is doing is it is taking the official Electron binary for the current operating system and architecture, and is just combining our source code with that and creating an app. In order to change things like the icon that is embedded in the binary, we would have to edit the binary or use tools. More specifically, I'm not I'm not smart enough to know how to edit binary files and change things like resources. But there are tools out there, packages available that can do this. This is kind of out of the scope of what I want to cover today, but I just want you to be aware that if you want to build an Electron application for your own purpose and you want to be able to customize the icons for each of the operating systems that you're deploying this application to so that it's specific to your app, there are some other systems for building Electron applications that I recommend that you look at. Specifically, let me bring up the browser again. There is a system called Electron Forge, electronforge.io. You can use Electron Forge to create a starter Electron project and then create your application from there. And included with Electron Forge is a lot of really nice utilities that the community has created to doing things like code signing and creating and setting app icons, and a lot of they've solved a lot of the common things that Electron developers run into when building Electron apps, and made that available as part of this Electron Forge framework. So I highly recommend it if you're building your own Electron application to use Electron Forge as your starting point. I also highly recommend that the first time you work with Electron, that you build something from scratch so that you understand what Electron Forge is doing for you. Because the mistake I made when I first started building apps with Electron is I tried to take one of these frameworks, one of these starter kits, if you will, and when I started to run into issues, I didn't know if the problem I was facing was Electron itself or was an issue with the framework that I was trying to use. And it wasn't until I went back and I built an Electron application from scratch using just Electron that I began to realize what those frameworks were doing for me. And they're great. Like I said, I highly recommend Electron Forge. But as someone who is learning Electron for the first time, follows like some of the steps that we've done over the last however many streams we've done on this teleprompter app, and get an idea of for the things that you need to do to build an Electron app, and that will really, really help you long term in the long run. All right. That pretty much covers packaging for Electron. There are installers. So also in the README for Electron Packager, there's a section that describes, let me see, distributable creators. So there are other systems out there that you can use for creating installers for Windows, an installer for Mac, installer for Linux. And it may be that if all you care about is redistributing your application on Windows, then you can use one of these. Again, Electron Forge has one or more of these systems built into that starter kit that does that work. So you can, as far as I know, you can create installers out of Electron Forge. But just know that this is where you can go. Electron Packager on GitHub. Check out the README, and you can find if you want to take it that one step further to create an installer, you can do that with one of these. All right. One of the things I want to do is not quite as exciting as writing code, but in order for me to consider this project ready for 1.0 release, is it needs a little bit more love on documentation and help. I couldn't package this file up right now and hand it to someone who is not a software developer and say, hey, here's a great app, run it, you can use it. There's just not enough information there for them to be successful with it. So what I want to do when you run the application, it pops up with this text. Try to close some of this other stuff so you can see it. It just says Electron teleprompter, please use the file open menu or keyboard shortcut to open a Markdown file as a script. Well, if you know what Markdown is or know what this application is supposed to do, then great. This may be all the information that you need. But I think it would be helpful for a broader audience if we include some kind of explanations here of, one, what this application does, and two, what is Markdown, and how do you go about creating a script that is compatible with this application. So we could do that in a couple of different ways. We could create a Markdown file called help.markdown and load that up in the browser by default. But we also have built in already in the client this teleprompter.html file. And this is where that text lives today. You can see Electron teleprompter, please use the file open menu. So we can start with this and say, this application does, and we'll explain the app. And maybe we'll use an H2 tag here and say, what is Markdown? So now when we run our app, npm run start, we get a, more explanation. This application does and then have like some instructions and then what is Markdown. So we can add some context or some help to the application so that someone who comes along that wants to use the app can know how to use it and they don't have to be a developer to figure it out, right? Mohammed says, I totally agree. Every app needs good documentation. Sometimes I want to use some software, but it takes a lot of time to learn it because the documentation is a mess. Yeah, absolutely. We want to create anything that we build, even if it's for ourselves. We want to we want it to be a good experience, right? Especially if we're going to share it with other people. We don't want them to be unnecessarily frustrated with trying to use an application that we built. Also want to make sure that our README file is accurate. So I wrote this README file when I first created the application, and I realized that I probably need to review it to see if anything's changed. So this is a desktop teleprompter app built with Electron. This app is being built in the open on the All Hands on Tech Live developer stream, available on Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. I'm gonna change this to past tense. This app was built. You can watch past streams on plural sites, YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook. Twitch does not keep a history of videos around for very long, at least as far to my knowledge. So, but you certainly can go back to YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So I need to update these to include links. That would be a good idea. Let's see. Facebook. Bear with me as I look up these links in another window. So the Facebook link for plural site is there. LinkedIn. Like I said, this is, may not be the most exciting part of the stream, but I do think it's important that documentation is updated and accurate. If you have any suggestions on what I could cover in the next 15 minutes. I'm all ears. Let's see, LinkedIn is world site. And YouTube. So I recognize that we've covered a lot of stuff in the last couple of months that we've been streaming together this application. And you probably haven't been in every stream. Not so. If you have any specific questions about something that's in the application that I can answer right now, I would be glad to. I could point to you where it is in the application. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's see. Setup, install Node.js, LTS. Let's say, let's call this developer setup. Open a terminal window, run npm install. And launch the app using npm start. That's really all we need. So the developer's setup, what we need is usage, and explain that this application the Electron teleprompter can load any Markdown syntax, Markdown and or HTML, because both are supported, Markdown and HTML. When a Markdown converter parses Markdown text, if there's any HTML, it basically passes that HTML through. It doesn't transform it in any way. So in essence, you could create an entire script using HTML and it would still work with the application. In this way, video conferencing or any other applications through the script. May want to update the wording on that so that it's a little more understandable, but I think this is good for now. And I'll take the same verbiage, the same text, and put it in here. To open a text file that contains Markdown or HTML as a script. What is Markdown? And I think I could put a link in here. Let's see. Markdown syntax. Markdownguide.org has a basic syntax. I've used this before. I like it. So I'm going to create a link here. Check out the Markdown basic syntax guide. Now I got to be careful. I don't want to load this. Oh, I can't use Markdown here because this is HTML. I got to swap these around. Cut. This is why I love Markdown, because it gets a little tedious to write HTML by hand. Anyway, what I was saying is you got to be careful with adding a link here inside an Electron application, because it's usually not a good thing. Let's see what happens. So yeah, it actually loaded the website inside the application, and I don't want that. I don't want to replace the contents that are in the app. So now, because we don't have a any kind of navigation or anything like that included, we just kind of allowed this to overtake the application. So instead of a link, I don't even know, but let's see how to ask Google this question. I want to load a link from Electron in the default browser. Make a link from Electron open in a browser. This was posted 7 years ago. You can use require shell open external. Better answer over here in 2015. Yep. So it's not trivial. We can definitely make it happen, but for now, we'll just take that out and we'll say Markdown is a they describe it as a lightweight markup language for creating formatted text the lightweight syntax for creating formatted documents. For the purpose of this application, there's a handful of requirements or things to know. The heading, use the pound see code it'd be nice to be fancy and say, have like a split window where you have like the syntax on one side and the results on the other. But for now, we'll just use this. Use the pre tag, maybe. Well, let's see what this looks like first. I think I'll have to use the pre tag. So I think it's code pre I think that's right. I may have it backwards, but let's take a look. npm run start. Yeah, that's what I would expect. And what I want to explain as part of this is that the secondary heading is what's used to jump in the script. But since we're right at time, I'm going to go ahead and commit what we've got. Let's see, get status. We've got package, JSON, README, and the teleprompter script. As Electron Packager and updates documentation. Push that, and it's like really, really close to being 1.0. I need to finish the documentation that I want to create for it, but that's pretty much the app that I hoped that we would be able to create through these series of streams. I am going to continue to host these streams over the coming weeks. Again, always at the same day, same time, Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, or wherever you are in the world. I've got some ideas on some things I'd like to cover in the future. I know for sure that I want to start building some Node.js code. And it could be a server-side API. I've got an idea for a game that we could build together, and a few other things. So if you have any suggestions, one, let me know if you've been enjoying these streams, if you learned anything, um, if this has been of value to you. I would love to hear about it. And again, if you have any questions, if you run into any issues, please hit me up. I am David at reverentgeek.com. My website's reverentgeek.com. You can contact me on Twitter. I'm also Reverent Geek there. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn and other places. So there's lots of different ways that you could get in touch with me. But if there's something that you would like me to help clarify for you, or something that you want me to cover in a future stream, I'd love to hear your feedback. Any questions before we wrap up? And hopefully there hasn't been too much of a lag or delay or issues with the audio and video quality today. My apologies if there have been. Again, if you want the source code for this project and play with it yourself, you can get that on my GitHub repository, reverentgeek/electron-teleprompter. And once again, my name is David Neal. I am Reverent Geek everywhere on the internet, and I am a principal developer advocate for Pluralsight. If you have any questions about technology as it relates to web development and JavaScript and Node.js and all those kinds of things, I'd love to help you. Well, until next time, my friends, I hope you have a blessed rest of your day and week, and I'll see you again on the next All Hands on Tech Live with your host, David Neal. Hope to see you again soon.